Let's get to it, man. This is Young Williams, this DC Black. You know what the business is, man.
Remember, he used to live in 18th Street.
Yeah.
That he was going to move to downtown to 16th Street.
Yeah. When he made that statement to me, he was letting me know that the price went down 3,000. It went from 19th Street to 16th Street.
So why do the feds now think he should be released early? Well, apparently he talked a lot. For 20 years, the D.C. United States Attorney said his cooperation had been both deep and wide. He discussed cold case murders, participated in reverse undercover drug sting operations.
And a lot of people don't know where the government informant part with the Rayful Edmond story comes from.
Edmond operated another huge drug ring right from inside the federal penitentiary at Lewisburg, Pennsylvania.
Rayful Edmond, despite his incarceration, was continuing to deal cocaine using inmate telephones, visitation privileges, and mail privileges.
He was calling Columbia by making three-way calls, by calling an associate outside of the prison who would then make a three-way call to Columbia.
When an informant exposed Edmond's operation, he in turn agreed to inform on his own network. 13 arrests have been made in the last few days.
When I was in prison, I used to spend a lot of time in the law library. I mean, I'm right here in the lab right now. This actually is one of the Rayful Edmond cases right here, the real paperwork from the case. In the case that he went to jail on, him and his co-defendants from Washington, D.C., the initial case.
The so-called Rayful Edmond gang arriving for trial. Massive security all around the federal courthouse in Washington, D.C.
Hey, right there. I'm telling
For what the U.S. government claims is a case that illustrates how new and violent drug networks are springing up all over the country.
1989. He did not tell on nobody in that case. At that time, he went to trial, he went to prison, and that's where the story of the ratting or the snitching began. So, to give you a brief rundown on it, like, Lewisburg is a very dangerous place. Ray got there in the 90s. It was real dangerous then for those who don't know. So keep in mind, all type of people are there. It's not like you go to a prison where you from and there's only the tough guys or the smart guys from where you from. It's people from all over the world. So it's Colombians there. As a matter of fact, Griselda Blanco, two sons, was there, Dixon and Osvaldo. But anyway, Lewisburg, like around 1990, Ray was there and he ended up meeting the Blanco brothers. They was there. You can look the names up yourself. So both brothers was there, right? And I'm looking at the case right here because I'm gonna read some of the stuff to you straight off the case. The brothers was there and they was 2 years away for parole at this time. Here, around October 1991, a tipster told the feds that Ray was back in business from Lewisburg Penitentiary using the telephone, right? So from April to October of 1992, the FBI listened to multiple phone calls. So from April to October of 1992, the FBI listened to 4 of Ray's phone calls. In detailed, information was supposed to be said on that, but nevertheless, the 4 phone calls that's in the court paper, they even got the phone numbers on there, right? The 4 phone calls was made to people in Colombia.
Remember, he used to live in 18th Street.
Yeah.
That he was going to move to downtown to 16th Street.
Yeah. When he made that statement to me, he was letting me know that the price went down 3,000. It went from 19th Street to 16th Street.
Via 3-way phone calls from D.C. traffickers, according to the paperwork, all right? So, at this point in time, they already know. Now, remember, they say this is 1992. They ain't pop him till years later. The feds listened and let this shit go on and on and on. That's how they do. That's how they play. To get everything they could get, all the information, all the people, all the players, so they could come in and do a big old swoop and lock everybody up. So, these Colombian boys, Griselda's son, Osvaldo, and Dixon, they made parole in 1992. They made parole in 1992. They went back to Colombia. So now Ray's still in Lewisburg, allegedly, according to the case. He still got an opportunity to jam. He still know people in the city, they got money. So they saying that he could call people and say, hey, how much paper you got? You got 60,000, you got 40,000, you got 50,000. Why don't y'all get all that together? And, we could do this and we could do that. He could call Colombia, according to the phone calls. Now keep in mind, bricks of cocaine, 16,000 at this time, at this particular time for him with the Colombian boys, according to their court documents, right? So now, feds listening. He's not being a rat at this time. But one of the notable names that comes up when you look it up is Michael A. Jackson and James Marshall Corbin. So these dudes went to jail. These dudes were set up by Ray, and these are the DC dudes. But a lot of people forget the big time Colombian boys, Freddie Aguilar, Nelson Garcia, big time plug. But he met these two dudes in Lewisburg when he did the reverse thing pop. Nevertheless, they made a bust when they made a connection with Michael Jackson and Jim. His name is Corbin in the court papers. So the federal indictment comes next. Listen to the phone calls. They set everything up. They did a reverse thing, and they got these two dudes. What he did was he told in the Middle District of Pennsylvania in a Pennsylvania court. However, he did come back to D.C. and testify in federal court against the Kevin Gray case, testified for 4 days. There's many casualties in this government cooperation that occurred from something like 1999 to 2014 or 15 and beyond. So back to this, we're gonna go to the indictment. The indictment that he told on in Pennsylvania from the Lewisburg drug trafficking case. They called it a drug ring out of Lewisburg over the telephone. That's what they called it. So the federal indictment came down August 8th, okay? We talking about the federal indictment came down August 8th in Pennsylvania, all right? So Jackson and Corbin, according to this indictment, bought 500 to 1,000 bricks from the Blanco brothers from January to October of 1992, all right? The Blanco brothers, which was supposed to be the connect, after being paroled from Lewisburg, follow the timeline. After being paroled from Lewisburg, making these moves with Ray, according to the indictment, went on the streets back to Columbia, allegedly was sending the work back over here. Both of the Blanco sons went back to prison. They on the indictment. You can look the indictment up. They got charged in Pennsylvania. So in July of 1992, the feds popped the payoff for $470,000, according to the court documents, right? That was going to the Blanco brothers. This is in the streets before they got arrested. This is just the evidence that come up in the case when you read it. So the feds didn't even move on Ray at the time. 1992, don't forget that. The feds was listening all the whole time. They was listening all the whole time. Didn't even pop Ray at this time. So after they made the move and popped these guys with the 470,000, they doubled back to go get Ray and the other dudes that was on the phone. They already got the Blanco brothers. So they went to get Ray for his role as what they call matchmaker and collecting commissions on bricks sold by the Blanco brothers. Bricks that were sold to DC buyers from the Blanco brothers, according to the statements of facts filed on August 8th of 1992 in Pennsylvania, where Ray pleaded guilty to conspiracy. He pleaded guilty to conspiracy to distribute over 5 kilograms from prison. All right? That's where that part of the case comes from. So now the ratting begins. Now the years, the 14, 15, 20 years of government cooperation comes in. At this time, if you follow the timeline. So in the indictment, Ray was indicted in the middle and being a middleman between Columbia and DC in the Middle District of Pennsylvania. That's where it comes from. In the middle of 1992, Osvaldo, the one you see pictures of in Lewisburg, because that's the one he was the closest to. He got cool with Dixon a little bit later, but his man was Chicky for real. He had to beg him, according to the court documents. I'm not saying this to be true. I'm just looking at all this coming out the court book. He begged Chicky not to kill Michael Jackson and Corbin, who he had said had not paid them for a shipment of kilos that had been delivered to them from Miami. As a result, Osvaldo, that's his name that comes up the price of kilos from $10,000 per key. So he said from $16,000 to $26,000, they upped the $10,000 price on the bricks because they had not been paid by these alleged dudes, this co-conspirators in the indictment. So Ray told this as well. This is all in the indictment, their names and the prices of the bricks. Nevertheless, so Osvaldo, Ray Man, ended up getting killed a few months later, coming out of a nightclub or standing outside of a nightclub in Columbia. That's also on the Netflix. You can see it. They don't connect DC or none of this to it, but that supposedly messed up a lot of things. Some people say that it had something to do with money he was owed and this and that in these court documents. They let Ray get back to jamming. Some type of way, they moved him out of Lewisburg, charged him in Pennsylvania in court, and then brought him back. According to law enforcement, Ray was tricked into setting the first group up. said he didn't have nothing to do with it. He hadn't become an informant yet, although their attorneys begged to differ. They insisted that Ray had did a reverse thing in the beginning. But law enforcement, you know, I don't know if they lying for him or not, but law enforcement insisted that Ray wasn't working for them yet. And they put Ray back to work. They moved him out of Lewisburg. They took him somewhere else. They did all these legal proceedings. At whatever point in time he decided to cooperate, sometime between 94 and 95, they put Ray back in Lewisburg. That's why the cases occur later. But what the play was, he was to tell people that, okay, yeah, Osvaldo, with his chickie, he got killed in Columbia outside a nightclub. All right, you follow me? Ray was to tell people that him and Dixon was back in touch and they was back jamming, although he wasn't. Ray ended up meeting Freddie Aguilar and Nelson Garcia. He didn't let nobody know that he had met them and they were still in Lewisburg and they was gonna be the new collect. He had them believing that it still was the Blanco brother Dixon. So what he did was he sacrificed Freddie Aguilar and Nelson Garcia on this next player who he told on, because that's the connector who got set up. But he had the dudes in the streets in D.C. and other places that he was dealing with believing that he was still messing with the Medellin cartel and Dixon, so everyone would be comfortable. Nobody knew that he's technically working for the police at this time. The plot moved on. Ray told dudes that all was well and he was back in business. Now he was dealing with Dixon since Osvaldo was there. It wasn't suspicious that he was back in business. They didn't know what he did when he got snatched out of Lewisburg. They thought he just caught the case and now he was back moving. Everyone trusted him. The FBI even mentioned that the dudes that they popped in the reverse sting trusted him so much that no one had a firearm. How many times you ever heard in a movie, newspaper, in a court case, if you've been in the street, how many people move with 400, 500,000 unarmed? They had to really trust the person to do something like that, right? So anyway, the Pennsylvania case and the status of the investigation ended up netting an arrest of multiple people. But for sure, Marcus Hayes, Lee Count Jackson, Adolph Jackson, Daryl Coles, and Rodney Murphy was arrested in the first reverse sting. So all of them got caught up in the first sting. They all went to visit Ray in Lewisburg. They had all bought hundreds of keys from the Blanco brothers, according to the case. These men allegedly came to a fake drug sting with $200,000 in cash. They allegedly came to this drug sting that Ray set up with the FBI with $200,000 in cash. There's no drugs there. They were supposed to be putting a down payment of $200,000 in cash for about 60 bricks of cocaine at the time. A part of Ray's deal in cooperating on this particular case was to forfeit $200,000. I mean, and that's a part of the deal. You can see that in there. It's a part of the deal that he had to forfeit $200,000. So Ray had already thought about being a rat. That's why I believe they tried him, because Special Agent John Cornally from the DEA had said that in 1989, when he was first arrested, and I'm gonna read it straight off the paper, it said it had long been said that Ray turned rat to get his mother out. Not sure how true that is, but according to John Cornally, on the original case back in '89 in federal court in D.C., he stated that Ray was interested in pleading guilty if he could get a deal for his mother and 3 sisters, but the deal was rejected by the United States government. Edmond supplied background and associational information that had been used in drug trafficking investigations in particular. His information had been used in numerous wiretap investigations. His information was not the sole basis for the wiretaps in any of the investigations. 2 cold case murders in Lewisburg from 1994.
He told authorities about 20 different murders that he knew about.
Exactly.
I guess the justification was to get his mother out of prison early. Did he tell on you at all?
It depends on how you look at it. I took it in some kind of way. On a couple of people's trials that he did go and testify on. He brought me up in the trials and talked about me and his dealings through the years. At the time, I got things in on appeal, and I'm feeling some kind of way because I'm like, what the fuck is you bringing my name or whatever you got yourself into, whoever you dealt with, or that's y'all business. But to get up there and describe me and what we did and what we dealt and how we did things, yeah, I took that offense to that and felt as if, yeah, you telling on me too. Due to the fact that, again, I'm trying to get out of prison and I got things in court, and now, okay, I don't condone nothing that you doing. You know, if I had been a part of something, whatever you was doing, then I'm gonna put my hand up and say, I knew what I was doing, or if you told something on me, I set myself up for that shit. But for me to not know what you're doing, not have anything to do with it, and then you testifying on somebody else in another trial in another state, but you want to talk about Tony Lewis and basically, you know, what the fuck is that about? So you saying fuck my chance of ever getting my freedom, and, you know, with whatever you and the people that you dealing with, whatever y'all had going on, which I don't have nothing to do with. And I don't condone no ratting and none of that shit that you doing in the first place. But that's how I felt. You asked me, did I feel like did he tell on me? I said, you can take it in two different ways, but I did feel like that just because I was trying to get my freedom back. And you put me back in the spotlight, and you told some things that was never known before by the government. And you told that shit on me and what me and you did. So yeah, you know, that's how I felt.